Finally, we can test our ideas in 3D. But before creating a good looking level full of details, we need to create the gray box for the level. This step is really important in the level design process. And yeah, here you will be creating the rough structure for the level. The gray box won't have any detail, texture, or colors. We only care about overall size and the functions of game objects. A good starting point is to import your paper mat to the project and use it as base for your greybox. Same as the paper map, I have started building from the starting zone. The most important part here was to create this curvy path to highlight one thing at a time and force the player to rotate the camera. To finish this area, I have created these tall walls to frame and highlight the tree and the main path. The next path of the level is a wide area that leads the player through the main route. The player doesn't know that there is a secret under the route, but what the player does know, because he learned, is that if he rotates the camera, he can find some hidden places. So the important lesson here is that you need to be sure that you have gave the player all the tools to solve the next challenge or puzzle. You can always give clues to your players, but in my opinion, the best way of guiding the player is through teaching behaviors. Behaviors that can help them to solve the puzzles by their own. Finding the switch under the route will allow the player to get to this small island. From here, he will see an inaccessible platform that can be reached with the double jump at the end of the level. And after finishing this first puzzle, the player will have access to this area. The idea here was to give the player a break from the deadly poison water with a safe jumping challenge. In the second puzzle area, the player doesn't have too much places to explore, so he will eventually be solving this part over here. Right now the player doesn't know that the water level can go down when you block a geyser, and that's why this area is small and the first part of the puzzle is pretty simple. We want the player to learn this new mechanic in an easy way. After this, the player will face the second part of the puzzle, and this one can be less intuitive and will require a camera rotate to find that this rock can be pulled from this side to decrease the second geyser length. And yeah, the next part of the puzzles are simple. The player needs to keep playing with the water level and the geyser length to find the solution. After the puzzle, the player will see the checkpoint totem under the root. This checkpoint is placed in a covered area to give the player the sense of security. In this new area, the player will see a lot of foreshadowing and tall roots and cliffs. And it's important for you to notice that here the roots are fulfilling more than one single purpose. They are giving scale, they are framing the path for the player, and they are interesting platforms that can be jumped over after you get the double jump. So what I'm saying here is that it's a good practice to use the environmental element to create the actual gameplay for the level. Actually, I did something similar with the water in the level with the geysers. So this safe and calm area here is to create contrast with the boss battle ahead. After defeating the boss, the player will get the White Blossom, and like I mentioned before, I wanted this moment to be important, so I have created this tall and lonely cliff to highlight the moment you receive the White Blossom. This changed the level completely. Water is walkable now, and the player will have double jump. With this new skill, the player can solve the remaining puzzle in any order. but probably the first one should be the one in this area. The idea of this final puzzle was to combine previously learned mechanics like moving platforms and geyser pressure, and with that the player will be able to get to the red crystal. The final part of the level is more a skill challenge than a puzzle actually. To access this area, the player need to go back to the first puzzle area, and now with double jump, he can access that high platform over there. For this area, the challenge was to create an interesting jump challenge with a not so obvious path and building some vertigo feeling for the player. So that's all for the gray box, and after a lot of playtesting, tweaking, and adjustment, we can add color and detail to the level. In this second walkthrough the level, we will put emphasis in details, object placement, composition, and some new stuff that I have added. I won't be mentioning every single new object that I have added, so I will be focusing more on the objects that are directly related with the level design. So for the intro area, I have added some obstacles to get the player used to the attack action before facing the two enemies ahead. And regarding enemies, it's important to put a special attention in how and where do we want to locate them. Keep in mind the aggro range and the combat area that you want for each enemy, because this has a huge impact on how the player interacts with the level. In this second area, I have reinforced the idea of framing the main path with these arches. This way, the player is guided in the right way, but at the same time, the secret under the root is less easy to find, is less obvious. I have blocked this side of the secret room to make it more difficult to find, but in case the player missed the secret, I have leave some openings so the player can see through. Apart from that, the rest is more aesthetic details to make everything feel real. And I recommend to put some effort in the details, like these small stones near the big rocks. These details are the key to build the environment composition and the environment to feel real. In this first puzzle area, I have created a simple trap under the root. I have located an enemy that can be seen from the main path. I have added a healing orb behind this root to reward curiosity. But in general, the rest of the area is pretty similar to the gray box. Same with the second pulsar area. I have done some changes in the platform shape to make jumps a little bit more easy, and as you can see, this area looks darker. This is intentional to create a more dramatic atmosphere that at the same time create a nice contrast between the illuminated areas. To make this area more interesting, I have added some lanterns. The third puzzle area is also similar to the gray box. In this part, I have tried to highlight the foreshadowing path and objects. The idea here was to create this dual path, like safe and easy in the bottom part and full of action in the part over the roots. Probably the part that I have changed the most was the final jumping challenge. The first idea was to create a field of pillars that you need to jump over, but that was boring and not too creative. But mostly it wasn't looking as part of the environment. It was looking like a game level instead of a real place. That's why I have changed it to be a path that use small and thin path in the wall. This also leave more empty space in the area to reinforce the sense of vertigo and danger to the player. And finally, I think my favorite part of the level is this big room inside the tree. I wanted this room to be empty to highlight and create this sacred atmosphere around the dying sprout. To create a better transition between the outside and the inside, I have put this object to block the side of the sprout from the entrance. This way, I create some foreshadowing, showing only that there is a cool light inside the tree. So I think that's all for this tutorial. I hope it was useful and I hope I was able to give you some tools to approach the level design.